I now call on the chair of the Constitutional Subcommittee of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Nadler, for questions that he might have.
I thank the chairman, and I thank the chairman for holding this very important hearing. And I thank the witness, Mr. Kurnaz, for being willing to testify to us after he has ample reason, unfortunately, to refuse indignantly to have anything to do with the United States, since the United States has treated him abominably and I think totally against our own laws. And I hope that people in the administration will eventually be held accountable at law for what has been done here. Let me summarize, if I can. I hope we're still in communication with Mr. Okay. Let me summarize, if I can. The CSRT announced 2 reasons for his enemy combatant designation. First, that his friend, Mr. Bilgin, committed a suicide bombing 2 years after Mr. Kurnaz was incarceration, even though Mr. Bilgin obviously didn't commit a suicide bombing since he's alive and well today. And secondly, that Mr. Kurnaz had enrolled to take some lessons from a Muslim missionary group called the Jamaat al-Tablighi, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, which allegedly has had several members who have at some time engaged in hostility to the United States. Are those the 2 reasons why the CSRT said that Mr. Kurnaz was an enemy combatant?
Those are the 2 reasons. Just to refine the second one, it was merely that he associated with this group and specifically, quote, received food and lodging from this group which, as you point out...
Does Mr. Kurnaz or Mr. Azmy, do you know how many members this group has?
Many million members.
It's about 40 million, isn't it?
That's right.
Now, under the law, was it anybody's duty in the United States government to bring this evidence that said that the United States had concluded he was totally innocent, to the attention of the CSRT?
Under a properly constructed version of the law.
No, I didn't ask that. Under the law that they were operating under. Obviously, under any properly civilized law, this would have had to be brought to the attention of a court. But I won't dignify the CSRT with the term of a court. But my question is, under the law as it was operating, was it anybody's duty to bring to the attention of this so-called court the definitive evidence that he was in fact innocent?
There was no absolute duty, no.
There was no duty. Do we know, and we don't know whether the CSRT knew about this at the time?
I have no information one way or another if they were aware of it. We know that they didn't consider it.
Mr. Chairman, I would hope that we will subpoena the members of the CSRT at that time, and all people and people who knew about this, certainly General Mallow and whoever else knew about this, and ask if they bothered, and if not, why not, to make available what they knew was definitive evidence of this person's innocence to the so-called court that was trying him. And I would ask the members of the CSRT whether they knew about it, and if they made any attempt to find out about it. So I would hope we would subpoena these people. I want to say, let me just ask one other thing. Now, Judge Green pointed out in 2005, I think it was, that in no properly organized court would this have been would he not have been found innocent, because there was no real evidence of guilt whatsoever. The 2 pieces of evidence were nonsense, and we had the exculpatory information that proved his innocence, which wasn't there. But he spent 5 years in Guantanamo despite having committed no wrong. Mr. Kurnaz, has anybody from the United States government apologized to you?
No, nobody apologized for anything.
Has anyone expressed that when you were released, they asked you to sign documents admitting guilt?
Yes, shortly before they brought me to the plane, they brought me in a room and brought me those same papers and told me if I'm going to sign, I will leave that place, and if not, I will stay for the rest of my life over there.
Okay. Can you, do you know who made that threat to you?
It was officers hiring it up. I don't know them well, but they came with cameras, for making filmings during the science.
Because I will certainly tell you that someone who tells a prisoner that if you sign a document you will be released, and if you don't you'll be held in jail for life, is committing, I believe, a crime. They are certainly committing a crime under our law. And certainly the people who tortured you, as you described it, by hanging you from the ceiling, by putting your head in the water and punching you so while you had to inhale, they were committing crimes under American law. And they ought to be held accountable, and the people who authorized that conduct ought to be held accountable. And I certainly hope that in the next few years we will hold these people criminally accountable. There's not much else to say. Let me, on behalf of the United States, express to you, sir, my regret and apologies. The United States should never engage in conduct like this. And let me say also, in comment with what Mr. Rohrabacher said before, the United States was viciously and savagely attacked. The attack occurred in my district. I knew people were killed then. That is not an excuse for behavior that was not simply mistakes. Some of the behavior that is described here was savage, highly illegal, wrong, and not simply mistakes. Mistakes happen, nobody's perfect. But unlawful conduct, savage treatment, holding people in jail knowing they're innocent, not allowing the so-called court to see the evidence of their innocence, these aren't mistakes. These are acts unworthy of a nation of laws.